it's Black History Month every day, but this is the particular month for Black History Month. The one thing I want to talk about on Black History Month is everything you see over in Egypt, all the statues, the Sphinx and everything, all of them noses is knocked off. They're knocked off for a reason. They're trying to make it seem like no black person had no footing in creating the certain things that we have created within this world, starting with Egypt right there. So I mean, maybe you could elaborate a little bit on that.
Well, we know that instinctively that Africoid people, first of all, a lot of people don't understand the word Ham in the Bible, which was Ham, Shem, and Japheth, which was Cush's sons. Ham represented Egypt. They were the Hermetic people. When people talk about, Egypt, they generally talk about the pyramids. But they don't understand that Jesus was also associated with Egypt. When Herod wanted to kill Jesus, and Jesus was in Jerusalem, in Bethlehem, he didn't flee to Lower Jerusalem. He didn't flee to Middle Jerusalem. He fled to Egypt. And one of the reasons why he fled to Egypt, a lot of people don't know, because Jesus, as the Bible said, his hair was like lamb wool, meaning that he had dreads, and his feet were like fires burning oven. Hey man, you don't even got to put nothing in the oven. You can have something that's white as snow, but if you put it in the oven and it burns, it's going to be dark as midnight. So we understand that Jesus unequivocally was, a man of darker hue. He might have been mulatto. He might have been Arab looking. He may have been Middle Eastern looking. But we know for a fact that he was of some form of Africoid descent. And when he fled to Egypt. We know Herodotus. Herodotus is considered the father of history. But Herodotus himself was a Greek. He was teaching Greek history. But as he was teaching Greek history, he didn't teach about Greeks. He taught about Egyptians.
Yeah.
So Herodotus was not the father of history. He was the stepson of history. When we talk about the Great Pyramids in Egypt, we got to understand that the pyramid was 350 feet. And when you look at the top of the pyramid, it was a hole in the pyramid. And that hole, most scholars say, was used as one of those telescopes, observatory telescope. They was able to, just like one of those observatory things, they was able to look and plot the stars. And, plot the stars, that's when you get astronomy and astrology and other alchemy and different sciences that we know today in mankind.
Yeah.
Okay. We know that the pyramid, inside the pyramid, also was the pharaohs. The pharaohs would bury themselves in their pyramid, and they would also bury all their jewels and all their valuables inside that pyramid. The pyramid was 365 cubic pyramid feet, which is equivalent to the Gregorian calendar, where you have 365 days. You know what I'm saying? How you get the 365 days, but they were basing their analogy and their assumptions based on the pyramid feats that were in Egypt. We know that the first step pyramid was built by a man by the name of King Zoser. King Zoser was the father of Imhotep. He was also the father of mathematics. He also was the father of chemistry. He was the father of all science. You see what I'm saying?
But now, tell me this, Ken. Now, I know you don't seen just like I've seen. They trying to rewrite a lot of history. They tried to do it back then when a lot of things were discovered over time.
Well, I'm gonna get to that. But let's give them the premise. The premise is that unequivocally, Imhotep was, of African. He was of Africoid descent. His father, King Zoser, was of Africoid descent. These were the first mathematicians. These are the fathers of alchemy, the fathers of astronomy. But we understand that when the Europeans, the Portuguese, the England, the Englishmen, and the Frenchmen, when they began to go and they became what they call anthropologists, And they began to explore anthropology. You know what I'm saying? The study of, man, and the study of, anthropos. You know what I'm saying? Man. Anthropology. The study of man, the study of artifacts and so on and so forth. So when they went over there as anthropologists, they went over there on an excursion. They was trying to, see what they can find. They was trying to see, what was going on. But when they got there, they seen all that gold. They went into the tombs. They found all this stuff, and they started pilfering. They started stealing all of this stuff. And they said, this stuff is so great, we have to attribute it to the white race. And they began to cut the nose off of the, I believe, one of the great scholars, I can't remember which one, but Napoleon or one of them had ordered him to cut the nose off, to chisel the nose off. I think it might have been Michelangelo, one of them. But when they were chiseling the nose off, whoever it was, when they was chiseling the nose off, then he put dust in his hand. And the nose had already been chipped off. He put dust in his hand, so as the king was standing up under him, he would let the dust fall from his hand to make it seem like he was chipping the nose off the Sphinx. The Sphinx is the big old lion that sit next to the pyramid. Yeah. Hieroglyphics, which is one of the original forms of writing, was on the pyramids. They tried to tamper with that. They stole all the artifacts. They took the artifacts, to European museums. Some of it is housed to this day in the Vatican. Yeah. They did all of these things is because, it's a book by George E. James called The Stolen Legacy. And he talks about that more exclusively than the time that we allotted for this interview. But, just to give my listener a brief, they would cut the nose off. They would, try to rewrite the history. In some cases, even in Hollywood, they had, what's her name? Liz Taylor played Cleopatra. Yeah. We know Cleopatra was, unequivocally African. She was in Egypt. She was an African woman. But Liz Taylor is lily white. Mm-hmm. But, they did that in order to try to, steal the history, of the so-called black man or African in Africa. Another thing we know, there was papers, the original transcripts that deals with Jesus, that deals with the original transcripts. They were written on what you call papyrus papers. Papyrus is a leaf that only grows in Egypt. Mm-hmm. Now, on the papyrus papers, they wrote the transcript, the original transcripts, of Jesus. Some of the writings of Jesus, from some of the great writers, Paul and Mark and Luke and all those people, that's in the Bible. Some of them transcripts was written on papyrus papers. But those papyrus papers was discovered back in the early 1800s, whatever, by a guy by the name of Ryland. And Ryland owned the Ryland Museum. And I believe the Ryland Museum was in Europe. So what he did was he took the papyrus papers, and he put them in the museum in Europe, and they went from being the papyrus papers to the Ryland papers. You see what I'm saying? And that was another form of stolen legacy. So a lot of times when we talk about Egypt and we talk about, pilfering and culture stealing, we have to say that the Greeks, the Romans, the French, some of the people, the Spaniards, they were very complicit in stealing the history of the so-called Africans and so-called black folks as we would know in America. Yeah. So, don't get twisted, We're not saying, hey, we don't get a white man some credit. The white man did some great things too. The white man, the Wright brothers invented the plane. Henry Ford invented the car. Of course, in both cases, they had, some African American engineers helping them, mm-hmm. But still, they invented it. They invented the light. So we're not saying that the pyramid is the all-be-all of inventions, but we're saying that you never hear about some black man running up and said, no, it wasn't the Wright brothers, it was me. You never hear nobody taking a brown or a black marker books and paint these characters who were great inventors black. You know what I'm saying? Because, it was we never tried to steal nobody's legacy because we always had our own legacy. But one thing I want to just let the world know in terms of contributions of so-called black men and black women in this country, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it is a lot of inventions. It is over 10,000 patents in the patent museum or the patent library, where you had inventions from African Americans. Charles Drew, he invented open surgery. He was a black man. Carter, what's his name? Benjamin Carter. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he was a great inventor. Washington, Benjamin Banneker. He was a great inventor. Percy Julian. We need to go look him up on YouTube. The Stolen Legacy. He was a great inventor.
Yeah.
The Honorable Noble Drew Ali. He was the first one to bring Islam to this country. You know what I'm saying? It was the Honorable Noble Drew Ali. And then came the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And then came 13 Clarence X. And then came the American Muslim Mission by his son, Wafdi Muhammad. It wasn't Arabs that brought Islam to this country. It was Africans who brought, former slaves who brought Islam to this country. It's a lot of things that, people don't understand. That it was a lot of great inventions, that was, the stoplight, was invented by a so-called black man. If you think I'm lying, just go and hit it up on Google. I'm not lying. Everything I'm saying could be fact check based on research.
But also say this, since it's Black History Month and you're a black business owner, how can people, further the cause of with you having a business? You're aiding the community. How can they aid you by, and they aid themselves by, shopping at your business? Put it out there for them.
Well, as an African American, or a Moorish American who once, was considered a criminal, a career criminal, who was eventually released from the penitentiary, who eventually, became a businessman and been a businessman for the last 30 years on different levels, even in the entertainment world as well as in the publishing world. What I like to say is that, all of us, who are fortunate enough to amass money, who are able to accumulate money, should invest our money in our own communities.
Yeah.
I live in Dallas right now, and my business is in Big T's Plaza, in the heart of the African American community. It is ghetto as hell in Big T's. But that's where I need to be, in the ghetto, where you can get more. You know what I'm saying? I want to inspire young African American males, because my mentor, the guy that brought me up in the game, was a guy by the name of Jim Dandy. And when I was in Milwaukee, I was about 14 years old. I walked in his store. His store was on 3rd and Martin Luther King Drive. And I walked in his store, and he owned a pool hall on one side. He owned a grocery store on the other side. He owned a bar on the other side. And then when you went upstairs, he had apartment buildings. And then he also had a little nice spot called an after hour that we would go and we would chill and kick it at, when we got old enough to kick it. And, he had it for many, many years. And this was my mentor. He used to always tell me, Ken, get you a corner. Get you a corner. Own you something, young man. And because of that man, because of him being in my ear, man, I've owned several businesses, daycare businesses, publishing company, dry cleaning businesses, and so on and so forth. So I knew how important that man was to me as a mentor. Now I'm the same age he was when he was telling me all of these things. So I'm sharp enough and intelligent enough to know, as an African American business owner, that there are young African American, young Moorish American children that are looking at me, that's walking past, and they formulating ideals. They're formulating concepts in their mind. They're trying to put it together. How did this brother own this business where we have all of these Asians and Arabs and African people also owning businesses in this strip mall or in this plaza or in this flea market. And that means a lot to these young African American males. So any brother, I said, like I always tell brother, hey man, the game is the game. Whether you flipping hamburgers or you flipping keys, you understand me? You still flipping money. You see what I'm saying? And that's what I want to inspire these young men to do. I want to inspire them to flip money. I want them to see a positive image. I don't want them to see me selling crack. I don't want them to see me selling dope. I don't want them to see me, out there pimping and hustling and doing the things that I used to do. I want them to see me in a positive light. And anybody that been in Big T's, they'll tell you, my store is plush. Not only do I want them to see me, I want to over-deliver to them. I want to come out and I want to shine like a diamond. I want them to I want to do it right and show them how it's done. Because if I can be that example to them, if I can change their trajectory or I can change their perspective on any level, then I feel that I've done my job. And I think that's one of the messages, that we need to understand in this Black History Month, or every day is Black History, because every day we make history. Mm-hmm. But of course, we understand the psychology behind them giving us 28 days and it being the shortest month of the year. You know what I'm saying? We understand, it's one of the coldest months of the year. We understand, the psychology behind that. We understand the mind of the white supremacists, who invented and who probably was the ones who orchestrated and pretty much approved, this so-called Black History Month. But, at the end of the day, man, one of the best messages that we can teach our children is economic development. We can also teach them group economics. We have to understand that when we spend our money with other groups, as African Americans, as Moorish Americans, what we're doing is we're taking our money out of our community, and those people are taking it to the Bank of China, or the Bank of Arabia, or the Bank of Mozambique, or the Bank of Nigeria, and that bank is a part of their national heritage, their nationality, their national people, and that money goes right to those people, So we are not Nigerians. We are not Ghanaians, but we have a relationship. We're not from Senegal, but we have relationships in terms of, historical relationships as far as we being brothers and sisters on that level. But we also have a land that we are privy to. It's called America. So being that we are privy to America, we can have our nationalized citizenship and we can claim our nationality with one of these particular. We can say we're Nigerian American. We can say that we're Ghanaian American. We can say that we're Senegal Americans. We can say that we're Moorish American. We can say whatever we want to say. But at the same time, we're still in America, so we have to deal with our American interests and our American culture. So all brothers and sisters who have money need to invest in the African American community. That's what I want to teach for this history, this Black History Month. Invest in your community. Take that money and put it in your community. And I guarantee you, if you have good customer service, if you honor your customer, if your worth amigo ain't your ego, if you willing to humble so you won't crumble, I guarantee you that your brothers and sisters will patronize your business. When people come to my store, I know that I have to over-deliver. I know that I got chandeliers, I got crown cheers, I got queen cheers. I keep my store very clean. And the reason why is because our diabolical enemy, have taught us to look at each other as ghetto. Mm-hmm. They ghetto in there. They see some food on the counter. If they see dirt on the floor, first thing they're gonna say, I ain't going in there. I ain't gonna shop with them. They too ghetto. So I have to make sure that my store look better than every store in the mall. I got to make sure that I spend the money on the buyout to make sure that I have a proper presentation. And that's what we have to learn. We have to learn to over-deliver to our people, because our people have been stripped of their language, their culture, their freedom. You know what I'm saying? They have been enslaved and incarcerated. You know what I'm saying? They have been told and been reduced to nothing. They have been taught that their black skin was a curse. They have been taught that, they wear a hoodie, that, you know what I'm saying, they could be racially profiled by the police department. They have been brutalized by the police department. They have been told by their teachers that they'd be better off being janitors and working at McDonald's and not being anything. So we have a steep hill to climb. So it's incumbent upon us, it is essential that we over-deliver to the consumer, that we treat people like they gods when they walk in our business. And anybody who ever been in my business, they would tell you that when you walk in Pimpinken's business, that man bow down, he cow down, he treat everybody like they superior. And one thing I learned, it's the guy with the regular clothes on. It's the guy that have on the no name jacket or no name hoodie on that be having the most money. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But we are so we are so conditioned, and we are so quick to prejudge ourselves, and prejudge our brothers and sisters by what they got on, that we tend to treat them, like we think they look. And that's because of that, we lose out on the sale. And that person who might have spent the $800 spent the $300, they end up not spending nothing because they feel that you had an inferior approach to them. You treat them like they were inferior. And one thing that we as African Americans got to do, one thing I want to learn, teach you for that, man, quit thinking that you have to buy a fancy car, that you have to buy a beautiful home. Quit thinking that you have to buy a bunch of lavish jewelry to prove that you're somebody. You know what I'm saying? That's the worst thing you can do. We the only race that go out there, and as soon as we get some money, we go buy the biggest house, the biggest car, and we pull up in a brand new Mercedes. We got on a $2,000 suit. We looking good, and everything, seems like we're successful, but we in debt up to our ass because we spending too much money trying to keep up with the Joneses. Mm-hmm. And that's why, and that's the reason why we all prejudge each other, because we think, these are the trappings of success. These are the instruments of being successful. In reality, some of the most successful people and particularly the 1%, they might have on some of the regularest jeans. They'll be walking around Walmart getting that old discount food, that old discount soap, that discount toothpaste, and they go and they get in their little Chevy or their little Toyota or their little Camry, and they drive straight to a $10 million home. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? So, that's the lesson, man. We have to become economically frugal. We got to practice group economics. And you got to do more, first and foremost, you got to study yourself. Learn about the Egyptians. Learn that 85% of the people in the Bible were of African descent. Learn, about the great inventors in this country. Learn about, some of your ancient forefathers and some of the kings and queens of Africa. You know what I'm saying? Learn about Mansa Musa, who was the richest man in the history of the world, who was indeed unequivocally a black man. Learn about Kwame Nkrumah. You know what I'm saying? Learn about Mansa Musa. Learn about Imhotep. Learn about Chancellor Williams, Dr. Ben, Takana. You know what I'm saying? Learn about Dr. Naeem Akbar, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King, and Minister Farrakhan, and Noble Ali, and Elijah Muhammad, and Jesse Jackson, and any other African descent brother, or any of the Afrocentric brothers throughout the diaspora. You know what I'm saying? We have to learn these things in order to understand who we are. Because if you don't know who you are, you can never understand who someone else is. If you don't love yourself, it's impossible for you to love others. So learn self-knowledge. Learn that mans have two selves. You have a higher self and a lower self. Learn about your higher self and your lower self. Learn about the highs and lows of our people and different eras of culture and time. Learn how we end up in slavery. You You know what I'm saying? I mean, we always talk about the white folks that enslaved us, but there was some African folks that enslaved folks too. Mm-hmm. There was some Jewish folks that enslaved folks too. There was some Arab folks that enslaved folks too. It wasn't always the white folks that was enslaving us. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we enslaved ourselves too. So once you understand that, and we understand why it's easy for people to oppress us and to look down on us and not respect us, you understand that a lot of this we did to ourselves. Because at one time we were the envy of the world. Everybody wanted to be like Africans. They still want to be like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you look at hip hop at one time was considered taboo. Now hip hop is the #1 selling music in the world. Mm-hmm. So you know what I'm saying? When you think about culture and the tanning of America, as Steve Stout would say, you know what I'm saying, in his book, The Tanning of America, when you think about the tanning of America, America got tanned because everybody wanted to be Ryan DMC. Everybody wanted to be 50 Cent. Everybody wanted to be Jay-Z. They didn't want to be Rod Stewart. They didn't want to be Kiss. They didn't want to be Led Zeppelin. They wanted to be Jay-Z. They wanted to be Kanye West. So we always been the leaders of culture. We have always been the influence of culture. We just got to get back to ourselves, and we got to be smarter than we was 400 years ago. You know what I mean? We got to take a different approach. We got to realize that some of the things that we do it to ourselves. And quit having that crab in the bucket mentality. It ain't about the crab in the bucket, it's about the crab in the ocean. You don't never see no crab in the ocean trying to pull each other down because the ocean is so vast, it's so large, and there's so much room to navigate, to move, to strategize, to plot and maneuver. So we got to understand, as so-called black folks in America, that we are very powerful people. Very powerful people. Very powerful people. Very powerful people.
Too cool to count 24/7.